Friday Political Power Panel. We have David Nakamura, White House reporter for The Washington Post, MSNBC contributor Ari Melber, also a correspondent for The Nation, and Susan Ferrechio, chief congressional correspondent for The Washington Examiner. Gang, it's great to have you all here, and let's dive into sequestration, because it's just so fun. David Brooks's article in the New York Times saying the president hasn't actually come up with a proposal to avert sequestration, let alone one that is politically plausible. Peggy Noonan's in the Wall Street Journal saying it's always cliff ceilings and looming catastrophes with Barack Obama. It is always government by freakout. Susan, are we in freakout mode just yet, or do we have to wait till we get to Thursday?
I think this time we may actually avert freakout mode. The vibe on Capitol Hill is that the sequester may indeed happen on March 1st, but that its effects, at least for those who are on Capitol Hill, that will not be as serious as what you're hearing now on all the TV stations, the gloom and doom about long lines at the airports and people not getting their benefits checks. I think it's been really exaggerated. This is only going to represent a little more than 1% of spending for this year, and everyone's going to get their budget. They're just going to have to, over the course of the year, reduce it by 8%. So I don't think you're going to see the big drastic cuts immediately, and it's going to give Congress time to work out a deal later. So because there's not going to be, say, government shutdowns and things like that happening right away, we may actually this time avert real freakout. And I think there's a sense on Capitol Hill that everyone's kind of getting used to these sort of cliffhangers and what's going to happen. And there's also a much greater partisan divide over the tax versus spending issue. Those things combined, I think, make it more likely the sequester will be a real thing on March 1st.
Meanwhile, you think that we're going to avert the full-on freakout mode. However, Crossroads GPS is out today trying to pin the blame squarely on the president. Take a look.
These cuts, known here in Washington as sequestration, are a bad idea. Are you willing to see a bunch of first responders lose their job, teachers laid off? Air traffic controllers and airport security will visit hardship on a whole lot of people.
All right, so that is just an example of the new Crossroads GPS ad. I've just been told that Jay Carney's press briefing is starting here in a few moments. As we see there to the left of your screen, Transportation Secretary, outgoing Secretary Ray LaHood is standing by, so we're going to keep our eye on that. Ari, I want to get your take, though, on watching that Crossroads, the new ad that is out today. One thing we do need to note, the RNC has been criticized for its ad where it put the president's words out of context about sequestration. But public polling shows that the president and the White House isn't going to get the blame, not the Republicans. The brand takes a hit for this one.
Yeah, the polling out yesterday from Pew showed half the country thinking that this would be more the Republicans' fault than the Democrats. Only about a third against Obama. That's probably the core third that might be against Obama on just about everything. I think, to echo something Susan said, look, there's a Die Hard movie out, right? But you don't have to see it to know how it ends, because all the Die Hard movies are kind of the same, even though many people go through the process of watching them.
Bruce Willis blows up a lot of stuff.
There's stuff that blows up.
Die.
There's deadlines. I think this does have a little bit of that character, not to make light of the serious jobs that are at stake and the fact that the country is still hurting. But the political part, I mean, is the Die Hard part. This is a sequel, and as the New York Times reported today, I think the White House feels, for the opinion reasons that you mentioned, they're in a strong position here to say, look, John Boehner said last week, these things are bad. This kind of cut is bad. We also think it's bad. Let's find a way out.
Well, it's like our congressional leaders are the moviegoers, and they're watching the movie where the American people are the collateral damage of what we're going to witness here. However, let me show everybody. We had the president speak earlier this week about where he stands with his wanting to deal with the Republicans. So take a listen to this, and then I want to play what Joe Scarborough said this morning on Morning Joe.
Where's he been? Where has has the president been vacationing for 3 months, 4 months? Where has he been?
And do we have the president's remarks from earlier this week, guys?
Republicans in Congress face a simple choice. My door is open. I put tough cuts and reforms on the table.
All right, so David, that happened earlier this week. So he's saying I've put tough cuts and reforms on the table. There was the congressional Dems that said to the president that they didn't want to see Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security up for cuts. But the president is willing to talk turkey when it comes to the realities that things need to be shore up, and not just when it comes to talking about revenues, but that we need both to balance the books.
Absolutely. The president's been saying that. The problem is no one has been very specific on the cuts, talking more specifically about the revenues. And this is, of course, what the holdup is and the problem that the Republicans have with the president's plan. They don't want to budge. They say they budged on revenues when the tax rates went up on the wealthiest Americans during the fiscal cliff negotiations 2 months ago. So now we're back at square one. And you saw the president say, "My door is open." And what's interesting is he seemed to be taking the tact of, look, I've done all I can do. You know, let's put public pressure from the outside on Congress to act. But then this sort of turned around on the president because he had not engaged Republicans. And after he got enough criticism, he did pick up the phone and he called several Republican leaders the other day. Not a lot of progress was reported from those private conversations. We don't see any action. Congress still out for the next few days, and the White House is going to continue this campaign next week.
It's been really interesting, the call me maybe approach of reaching out to Rubio over in Israel and getting Lindsey Graham on the phone, also Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, immigration at one point, sequestration on the other part. But let's take a look at what's coming next week. We've got the Hagel confirmation vote on Tuesday, and we've had this real shift from the Republicans of Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama saying that he would step in line to vote and confirm Hagel as the next defense secretary. This is a big shift because 15 Republicans want Obama to drop Hagel completely. Ted Cruz leading the charge here. Ari, your take on this and the fact that we've seen Republicans, 3 of them anyway, with Shelby, Johans, and Cochran, get on board with Hagel?
Look, they should be credited for that. I think the core Republican critique here did not have an end game. There was a lot of rhetoric against Chuck Hagel, including some very regrettable, unsubstantiated attacks from Senator Cruz. But at the end of the day, he's a Republican that this Democratic president reached out to include in his cabinet. Barack Obama and Chuck Hagel have agreed on Iraq and agreed on other foreign policy issues, but they're from different parties. The fact that most of the Republicans couldn't get down with that shows you, I think, just how far out they are. And if Hagel didn't make it, then what would Obama do? Pick a Democrat? I mean, what is their end game? So I do think he does get confirmed, and I think then we can move forward with the policy issues and not the personal attacks on him as a nominee.
All right, that vote coming up on Tuesday. My thanks to our Friday Power Panel today, David Nakamura, Ari Melber, and Susan Ferrechio. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks.